just want to say hello and welcome to everyone who is here for this fantastic evening of organizing and designing a life plan for your young adult, your younger adult, or your older adult with Down syndrome, or any young adult can go through, any family can go through this. I'd like to introduce Miss Linda Kronmiller, Mrs. Linda Kronmiller this evening, and she is going to lead us through this organizational and design this evening. Linda is a parent of a young adult who we all love, Eric, who has Down syndrome, and she has done a fantastic job of organizing her life. And so we want to get aboard the Linda train and get our lives organized as well. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you all, or present to others, Miss Linda Kronmiller.
Thank you, Linda. Hello, everybody. Okay. Well, I'm going to just start by saying, typically when I do this presentation, it's in person and I have the PowerPoint behind me and I'm able to pass my actual book around, which this is Eric's life plan. And as you can see, there's lots of pages. So what I'm going to do tonight is go through the PowerPoint and just talk about what I've included in his plan to give you ideas what you can include in your child's plan. The inspiration to do a life plan for Eric came to me from a woman I met when Eric was first born in New Jersey, and she had done a life plan for her son and had given it to me, and this is the life plan. I've had this since Eric was born in this binder, and it sat for many years until Eric was 15 when I decided to start working on his life plan. I was a little overwhelmed with the process, so I figured I'll just start, and every time I'm inspired, I'll sit down and add more to it. So that's basically how Eric's life plan started. Why I feel the life plan is important is it provides detailed information on your loved one and resources on Down syndrome and health issues that may affect your child. So in your absence, someone can pick up this book and know everything there is to know about my son and how to care for him. And that was important to me because no one knows their child like the parents. So my daughter, who grew up with Eric in the house, we went through this not too long ago, and she's like, well, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that, because she was a kid not paying attention. So all the information that we're going to go through is in here. It took me several years to complete it, and it is a living and breathing book because Eric's life is still going on and my planning for him is still happening. So that's the story about how the book got started. Everybody's life plan will look a little different. The PowerPoint will just give you a guide to get you started. How I first started, before I even started writing some of the things down, I scanned all of Eric's important documents. And I did this based on a recommendation from a very wise mother and professor who said, you want to have all the information in one place because as Eric goes through adult life, you're going to be asked for his social security number. You're going to be asked for the guardianship papers. You're going to be asked for medical cards. So it's all in one place. I also have the life plan on a flash drive that I keep in the binder. And I also have a flash drive in our home safe. And we'll talk about that later. So I am going to get started. So this is the binder cover. Okay, so this is what I have as the binder cover. And basically I wanted just to explain what this binder is. So if somebody found it in my absence, they would know what it is. So that's what that is. Okay. All right, the index for the life plan. Now, if you received a copy of the PowerPoint, this is an updated index because I had added to it and I wanted to make sure that the correct information was there. So you should have received a separate copy of this. So the index for the life plan, it's the life plan, which that's what we're going to go into depth about. The section 2 is location of important documents within our home. Section 3 is all of the medical things that we need to go over, and I'll go through them as we get through the binder. Section 4 is important document copies. Section 5 is state of Missouri support documents. And Section 6 is community resources. And community resources is very important because just picture this. You've been looking into resources for your child, your adult child, your young child. My daughter's not going to know what resources are out there. It takes a lot of legwork to get the resources down. So it's very important you include community resources in there so people don't have to start from the very beginning and spend time on that. It's all there. I also refer to our estate plan and Social Security information. I keep that in separate binders on separate flash drives. Well, it's on the one flash drive, but in a separate folder. But I do have separate binders for that because I didn't want to include our estate plan in there. It's very personal information, but it is available. The location of it is noted. So that's the index. All right, this is the beginning of the life plan, and it just basically is telling the person that who's ever reading this and needs to help your child in your absence that there's information in here to help them provide the best care possible for our loved one. It's being provided in addition to the documents prepared by our attorney, etc. So I also included on the first page underneath where the red attorney name and address is, I included, whoops, sorry about that, our attorney's name, address, and phone numbers. So that's the first page of the life plan. All right, and then when you get into this section, you can make this as brief or as detailed as you would like. We filled ours out with some education information. I didn't put that in here for the purpose of the PowerPoint, but whatever you feel is important about you. So this would be my page, mother. I also have my Social Security number in mine. It also is in our other binder with our estate plan. So this would be any information you want someone to know about you in your absence. And then the father, the same information that you would want someone to know. The sibling, the siblings. I provided a page for brother and sister. And the reason I did the PowerPoint like this and I didn't make it fancy is that you could use it as note-taking, of things you want to write down and then put it away. And then when you're ready and inspired to sit down and enter the information into an actual Word document. Okay. Then I have Eric's information, his name, date of birth, place of birth, Social Security number, his residence, cell phone number, religion, godparent, St. Louis Regional Case Manager, medical. And it's just, as far as religion, like his religion, his going to church is very important to him. It's important people know that that's a big part of his life. Okay, here, I'm going to open up mine and just hold up the page. I have all of our family, friends that are local that I would trust could carry out some help for Eric in our absence. And then our out-of-town family and friends, their contact information. So that's what this page is. All right, this is an important page. These are all the organizations that serve Eric. And I'm going to read them to you. So in Eric's binder, we have the Down Syndrome Association of Greater St. Louis as number 1, the St. Louis Arc, the Pool Halls Family Foundation, the Pool Halls Wellness Center at St. Luke's, Spensa, which is his soccer association, the Falcons, which is his Special Olympics team, his pals bowling team, the Catch-22 Miracle League, and Best Buddies, and his speech and language program that he participates in, and then information on our church. So that's all included there. So nobody was going to have to say, oh, what do I do? Linda's not here to, help me, or Dave and Linda aren't around to help us. Where do we go? Right here, this is where you would start with these organizations. The next page, which is very important, everybody should have a regional case manager. So this is the information on the regional case manager, who they are. I did notate that they're the go-to person for waiver funding and services needed. So in the absence of Dave and I, they could contact the case manager to get waiver service started in our absence, if they don't already have waiver services. Okay, the next page is employment. It states where he works, the phone number, who his supervisor is, the days and hours, and then job description, which, my page is full. Right now, I do have a note in there. I'll just show you quick that he is on a leave of absence due to COVID. Mm-hmm. So that will be taken off, obviously, if he gets to go back to his job and maintain that job. Also, volunteer opportunities. I know Pat's really good at this, finding volunteer opportunities for her son. So any places that that individual can volunteer at. Because again, in the absence of the parents, nobody's going to know that. So here we have it notated. So you would just include that information. Then I have the education and training. So what his education was, where he went to school, his high school graduation date, the life skills programs that he completed, and the job training programs that he's completed. So in Eric's case, he did the ARC programs for job training, and then the vocational skills programs through the school district. So, the contact people, I don't know if they'll still be the same people, but the phone numbers are there in case anybody has a question about what type of training Eric received, although I do have it listed specifically. And I also have a resume, which we'll talk about that later. So that's what that page is for. The daily schedule is pretty full.
Linda,
yes.
Would you have a copy of his graduation certificate? Do you have that in there, or would you think?
I don't have it in the binder, and that's a very good idea, McKinney. I'm going to add it. Ooh. We have it in his room, so I'm going to include that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That is a great idea. So this is his schedule, which is very full, and it goes Sunday through Saturday. And it basically, what time he goes to work, what time he has to be dropped off, what time he has to be picked up, who provides the transportation for him to get to work, what he does on Monday nights, Tuesday nights, after work, which prior to COVID, he had an extremely full schedule.
Linda, did you scan his birth certificate in the first part of your documents?
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't go over that. I'll tell you what those are. I have it listed here for you. Birth certificate, diagnosis, medical cards, vaccination record, social security card, school ID, which is no longer, something we need, but state ID and guardianship papers and any other important documents that pertain to your child or family. So yes, that I did scan, and when I go through the back of the binder, I have the copies in the binder, and I'll show you that. I talk about what Eric enjoys to do in his free time in this section. He also, I talked about his church, what he likes to do with church. And some of the activities that he no longer is participating in, but participated in the past, because that's something for the future possible, to get back involved in things. So this is a very detailed area, because you want people to know what your loved one was doing, and this lays it out, and hopefully after COVID is gone, they can return to their busy, happy life. All right. The health information section is probably the longest section for us. Some of our children have significant health issues. Others have, minor issues. So our health section is extremely long, and I'll just give you ideas of some of the things that I listed in here, only because as time went on, I'm like, oh, I need to put that in there. Oh, I need to put that in there. So again, it'll be individualized to your child, but I do put the insurance information on the first page. And I just did a little paragraph about trisomy 21 and what Down syndrome, like the definition of Down syndrome. I start out listing who his current primary care doctor is and who his pediatrician was, only because it's only been 4 years since he's been to that pediatrician, and his pediatrician knew him very well. So that could always be a person they could go to if they had a question about something that happened in his past. Then I start listing all of his health issues, and why it's so important to follow through with each one. So for example, Eric has hypothyroidism, so he has to take Synthroid daily. He also has a condition with his eyes in the spring and early summer, and it is an unusual diagnosis. It's nodular episcleritis, and basically it's severe eye allergy where his eyes bubble. And that's important for people to know, because in the past, when he was still in school and even at work, I wanted them to know it's not conjunctivitis, it's nothing they can catch, that type of thing. So I listed that. I listed that he does have asthma. A big thing, and I did a lot of research on this, and this affects a lot of individuals with Down syndrome, is they do not tolerate heat very well because they do not sweat like the typical person does. And that has caused quite a few issues with him, in addition to having autonomic dysfunction, which during a virus, his body starts shutting down, hence us being home during COVID. I explained what happens to him when he goes into he starts going into the dysfunction, how it affects him, and that it is a 911 emergency. So it's really important that people know this, because they may, if I'm not there to tell them, they may not respond the same way, they may not think it's an emergency, and it is an emergency. We have him on a water protocol, which has helped greatly with the dysfunction, and I explain that. I explain all his hospital visits and how they were handled. He needs to have intravenous fluids immediately when he gets into an ambulance. They can't wait until he gets to the hospital. Just things that people would not know is what I list in here. I also list about some of his skin conditions, and he also has it's low fibrinogen, which is part of the clotting factor. So he bruises easily. So people would understand if he has a mark from a backpack on his shoulder, that's normal for him. I also, he has scoliosis, so I have that information in there. So anything that pertains to your child, you want to make sure you include it, because some of this I added later. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't put anything about his skin condition. So I would go back and add it in. So you start out small and you add to it. I also have a protocol for treating a virus and how a virus gets handled. because I know how to do that. Dave knows how to do that, but someone else would not. And then I have his medicine schedule. Here we go. Medical conditions, his medication schedule, the fact that he needs to take vitamin D due to low vitamin D, which a lot of our loved ones with Down syndrome have lower vitamin D levels, and how to give him his asthma medication. So these are all things that someone would not know because they don't live with him. So I have it all listed. I did go into the specifics of his hospitalizations, his surgeries that he's had through his lifetime. And then his doctors. I have every doctor that he sees now and the doctors that he saw in pediatric care. And eventually I'll take that pediatric list off of there, but like I said, it's only been a few years and they may be able to provide good information on Eric since they lived through most of his hospitalizations. Okay. So I mean, I can't stress enough how important I feel the medical information is because it could be life-saving. I know it would be in Eric's case. General information, I go into his personality traits, his likes and dislikes, his communication style. Eric has a large vocabulary, but he's extremely shy when he doesn't know somebody. So they would think he doesn't speak because he mumbles, and it's more so because he's nervous. He does have articulation problems, so a lot of people don't understand when he's talking, and he tends to talk fast. So I have in here, you need to tell him to slow down or show you or point, all the things to try so he can express what's happening with him or what his needs are. Housekeeping, you know, what he's responsible for, what he can do. He can help with laundry, he can help with dishes, he can help set up for dinner, those types of things. And so they don't have an expectation that he can do everything. These are the things right now that he can do. And of course, I add to that as we go along. Grooming. Oh, one more thing about personality. Like Eric does not deal well when voices are raised or, you know, there's any show of anger from someone, and he really shuts down. So I put that in there. So any of those little differences that your child may have, you need to list that because you're going to know that who takes over may not in your absence. I talk about his, you know, music, his love of music, grooming. You have to list what does your child or even adult child need help with grooming. You know, so I list everything here. Eric is independent in grooming at this time, which is wonderful. But I know some folks don't have, you know, that with theirs. So, you know, do they need help regulating the hot water? You know, those are the type of things you want to include. And then food and beverages. I talk about how he eats, what he likes. He basically likes everything, but it wasn't always the case. But he does have to have a high protein bar every day, and he has to drink 6 to 8 bottles of water a day. So that's in the food and water. And then he's not a big snacker, but if your child is, what kind of snacks you want them to have, you know, to keep them healthy and not gaining weight, things like that.
So Linda, in the food and beverage area, would you put down there for example, if you had a young adult who was not necessarily finicky in what they ate, but in terms of it, if they had, for lack of a better word, obsessive compulsive, like I don't want my potatoes to touch my peas.
Yes.
Like my college roommate was very different. She did not want, you know, different things on her plate to touch. So would you make sure that you put something
Yes.
like that?
Include anything, you know, with their eating habits, anything that they don't like, you know, what they really like, what their favorites are. And you can also include their favorite restaurants because, you know, in your absence, you want to try and keep their life as normal as possible, who's ever going to be overseeing, you know, caring for them. So I also put in here, it's interesting, you know, that you said that one of the issues we have with Eric is because of the low muscle tone around the mouth, sometimes he'll have food around his mouth. And I want to make sure that someone brings that to his attention because he's not always self-aware of that. He would come home from school with, like, you know, lunch, part of his lunch on his mouth. And I just called the teachers and I'm like, you know, I'm not there. You need to just tell him, wipe your mouth. Here's a cloth, here's a napkin, whatever. Things like that, because I put a little note in here. He may not realize his mouth is messy. He must maintain a clean appearance at work for his dignity. And at school, I mean, you want your child to be looked at as part of the, you know, not walking around with food hanging out of their mouth, because you know how young folks can be when they see something like that. So, you know, just little notations like that that somebody may not think about. I'm going to go back. Well, no, I won't even go back. I'll just finish off. I just put down daytime and evening time, little quirks that apply to Eric with food and water. He will get his own water. I don't have to. It was a training thing to get him to drink 6 to 8 bottles of water a day when he never drank water at all. It was always juice and milk. He now does it himself. And, you know, so I noted that he knows when to give himself water. And water is so important for our kids because they do not sweat the same way, and you want to keep their bodies hydrated. So,
Linda,
you know,
how did you train him as an aside? Is that another whole seminar?
well, basically with Eric, we started off with 1 bottle of water instead of giving him juice at lunch. And we said, that's what you have to drink. I mean, it was not overnight. This was a process. I think what happened was he realized how much better he felt drinking the water. A water fiend. I mean, we'll go in, like, we keep a bottle, a water bottle drawer in the refrigerator. And Dave is constantly refilling it. And, you know, we recycle. So Eric leaves his bottles in a certain way. So I know he's drinking his water, but it was a process, Pat. You start off half a bottle of water, work up to a bottle, you know, and I truly believe Eric felt better once he was drinking water regularly. And now it's just automatic, but it did not happen overnight. So. And he pours himself a glass of fat-free milk before he goes to bed, and then he brushes his teeth after having his milk. That's his little nighttime routine. Okay, now we're going to the future. This is important. This is very similar, McKinney, to the letter of intent information.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, a letter of intent, I think, is limiting. I think you need to, they need to know about the person before you can create a letter of intent and what your hopes and dreams for the future are. So right now, this is a work in progress for us because Eric is 23. So the future, we have certain things lined up and we're working on some other things for the future, right, Pat? Pat and I are looking into options for the future. So basically, you know, our goals were, like, because he was working at the time, was that he continues to maintain his job at Pfizer, and that he continues to be involved in the activities that are listed in the plan, that he is provided with events that and opportunities that give him exercise to keep his health up, his body weight down. I go into the job specifics there. Again, I reiterate some of the completed training that he's taken a part of. And living arrangements. This is the big question for us moms that have folks in their 20s and 30s. What's going to happen? I mean, my goal, personal goal for Eric, is by the time he's 30, which is 7 years from now, for him to be in a place. What that's going to look like, that's what I'm working on. But I don't, and the reason for that is I don't want a surprise to happen and his whole world to come collapsing down on him. God forbid, Dave and I are gone. With the living arrangements, in the back of my binder, I have options under the community resource section, because God forbid something happened tomorrow to both Dave and I, Danielle would need to start working on something. You know, she lives in an apartment with 2 roommates, so he obviously can't go there. Would she come back to the house? I don't know. So in this living arrangements, current and future, you need to list what your plans are, what the current situation is. Residential options for the future. Right now, I have possibly living with his sister, and then I have St. Louis R community-based homes. I also have a couple other options listed, and I'll go over that when I get to the end of the binder. The other thing is I have listed is the transportation that's available to the individual in their community. So for example, living in Eureka, like we do not have public transportation. We do not have Metro, Caller Ride, or Oaks. So I am transportation. So my goal for Eric down the road is to move closer in, you know, to east of Eureka, to get into a community where there is transportation provided for him in the absence of someone to drive him. So that's another goal that I have listed. So you may have other goals that you want to add. This is a work in progress for me. So I'm not there. Pat's probably a little further than I am because Aaron's older, and you too, McKinney, you know, with the Bayo being older. So that's basically what I put into the life plan. And I think it's pretty comprehensive. I know that there'll be days I'll say, like what McKinney said, including the diploma. I didn't even think to do that. So thank you, McKinney. That is definitely something I would include, a copy of his high school diploma. What I'm going to do now is go into the sections of the binder. Oh, one other thing, and I have this at the back of my binder, is a page. Now, I have separate binders for this, but you want to have information on government benefits in your binder, because people are not going to know what the individual is entitled to unless they're actually working with Social Security and Missouri Health Net, you know, for the child. So, you know, listing that information. I personally have a separate binder for this. It could be included in the life plan binder. It would really be a personal choice. So I have the doctor's in section 2. I have a copy of his birth certificate. I have a copy of his karyotype that shows he has Down syndrome. The other thing, Linda, I had mentioned earlier is scanning these important documents, because you're going to be asked for this information as they progress through life. Like to get, you know, if you're going to have a waiver, you need to provide certain information. If you're going to get into a day program, you're going to need to provide information. So it's all there. So I also have all this information on a flash drive, and I can print it up like right then and there. You know, I carry one in my car, I have one in the binder, and we have one in my safe. So I could always print up this information if I didn't have it with me. I also have his diagnosis from his first doctor. You know, even though we have the karyotype, this made it very, having the karyotype was very, you know, a lot of people don't have it, and that's okay, but it made Social Security very easy for us. We didn't have to prove anything. We didn't.
And most people what do. Is this?
Yeah. No, but
they don't want to mess with you.
Yeah, well, it proves that they have Down syndrome, you know, where some people, you know, we're sitting there and I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, you can tell. You know, oh no, we need documentation. Well, I had the karyotype with me. She goes, oh, okay. But I know a lot of people have had to jump through hoops and get letters from their doctors. And things like that, which I do have a letter from his first doctor that he has Down syndrome in here. I haven't had to use it because we have the karyotype. I have the new, thank you to Pat, the new guidelines for Down syndrome, medical guidelines in there. And that's all on the index. All this information, you can Google it. You know, the things that you don't have that are personal to your child, like this, you can get online. Eric having autonomic dysfunction.
Linda, that new guidelines was wasn't it from the Global?
Global,
Down syndrome?
yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if McKinney, you have it, don't you?
Yes.
You know, so Linda, if you need it, McKinney can
I can get it to you. Yes, provide you the.
It's new. It just came out. So
okay, about 4 weeks ago.
I also have any of the unusual diagnoses that Eric has, like his autonomic dysfunction. I have a letter from the cardiologist in here. I also pulled up from online what autonomic dysfunction is, because people maybe not understand, well, what does this mean? So, you know, it affects your heart rate, body temperature, breathing rate, digestion, sensation. It affects everything. So people understand this is a true medical emergency if he starts to experience this. So I have a 4-page article on it. And he was diagnosed by a cardiologist. The other thing that kind of goes along with the autonomic dysfunction, but affects the majority of our kids, is that they get overheated easily because they don't sweat the same way we do. So I have an article on that I got offline from the Adult Down Syndrome Center in Chicago. They were actually doing some really nice newsletters, and I was like, oh, this is good. I'm going to pull this off. So warning signs that a person with Down syndrome is getting overheated. You know, these are things people aren't going to think about. We had taken Eric to a hayride, and he had one of those non-breathable fleece jackets on, and he overheated and passed out dancing outside. And when that happens, you lose bodily functions, and it's a disaster. So it's important people know what to do. It tells you what to do, and basically get them water prior to doing any physical activities. Avoid overdressing, limit exercise in very hot and humid conditions. So it kind of tells you how to handle that. Eric also gets skin condition that can turn to staph folliculitis. You know, he has keratosis pilaris, which is little bumps on your arms and legs. A lot of our kids have it. Well, his can get infected. They don't anymore because we use the protocol, but you know, I have what the protocol is for that, and it's bleach baths and creams and things like that. So I have specifically in here. I also got a copy of his vaccination record, because you will be asked that throughout their life, were they vaccinated for this, that, etc. I have a copy of that. I do have a copy of his current blood work that he just had, just because, you know, he has a vitamin D deficiency that, you know, it kind of reiterates the fact that he has to have vitamin D supplements. Then I have copies of his medical cards, and these are also scanned, so they're easily accessible. And his state ID, I have that in there. And then I have article on the Groove. Have you heard of the Groove? I know Pat has, Marnie, I'm not sure if you have, and Linda. The Groove is that our loved ones with Down syndrome get into a routine. It's about their routine. It kind of explains why when you break their routine, they may get upset. So I think that was an important article to include for people to know about our loved ones. Okay. Eric does a lot of self-talk when he is not engaging with people, and I included the article about self-talk that came from Disability Solutions years ago. I included that, and you can get that online, and if not, I know the DSA, because I scanned them all into the computers years ago, can get you these resources if your child self-talks, because it is important that people know, because a lot of people would look at that as a psychiatric condition when it really is not. It's a way of processing information out loud. So I think it's important for people that don't know, all this unique stuff to be in there. Okay, the next section, I have other important documents. So I have a copy of his guardianship papers. Not everybody does guardianship, but we did, and copy of that, because you need to have, and we make copies of that copy. We have the original in the safe, because when he goes to the doctor, or if you're going to talk to somebody, you need to let them know that you are the person. Now, what I'm finding is a lot of people don't value that piece of paper. So what they'll have me do is have Eric give permission to talk to me, even though I have guardianship. So it's important to notate that in the binder.
Linda, so there's duplications, right? The first binder has some of the same stuff. Is that right?
No, I'm still in his life plan binder.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought because you said you had separate binders for different things.
I have a separate binder for Social Security and for our estate plan.
Okay.
You're
just going through more detail. Okay.
I'm just telling you what I include in the life plan binder. So the life plan explains about the person, and then the sections that are listed in the index, it's so everything is in one place. So no one has to wonder where it is, how to get it. It's here. It's here for them. And then, having it on the flash drive, because a lot of people, I am definitely a paper person. And I think most people in an emergency case would want to open up a book, but there's a lot of people that prefer using it on the computer. So that's why I also have it on the flash drive, and I have it on my computer. I have Eric's resume in there. It looks very impressive because he did a lot of training programs. So I have his resume in there. Okay, and then I included in here helpful contacts for Medicaid waiver information. So this is under the state resources that I mentioned, the state of Missouri. And Pat, you're in there.
Uh-oh.
My list. I'm going to show you.
All right. What am I, a resource on explaining the waiver?
Well, basically, God forbid something happened to both Dave and I, and my daughter had to take over. She's not going to know this stuff. So I have Vicky's name in there, Pat, and Mary Matthews. Vicky, because she's our guru. We've learned a lot. She's part of the SDS group. And then Pat and Mary have experience with the waivers. So if Eric is going to need to get a waiver, these would be the people that could help answer questions. Obviously, the regional case manager is your first go-to person, but a parent can always give you some sideline information. So I have those persons listed. And I listed, that Pat has a son named Aaron. I listed a little bit of information about Pat in there so people would feel comfortable contacting her. Then I have in here, and this you can get online, the specific waiver. I'm just going to pull this out, information on the waivers that you can get online. It tells you all about the waivers. So, because in our absence, Eric would need to access waiver money. So it explains what the waivers are, what they, the services they provide, the different kinds of waivers. There's the comprehensive, the Missouri Children with Developmental Disabilities waiver, I think, which is for under 21, community support waiver, the Partnership for Hope waiver, and it explains what each waiver can cover. Just so if a person goes to the case manager and they're kind of being led astray, they could say, well, I read that, it should include this. So I have that in there. And I know that Aaron has an ISP, which is an individual support plan that's written by the regional case manager. Marnie, I would assume that your son does too. And Linda does he have an ISP? So I include a copy of the ISP in there. It's kind of some of the information is repeated in there from the life plan, but it's not as in depth, you know. So I have his support plans. And then the last section, I have community resources. So this is really important. This is a work in progress for me because, like I said, I will be planning for Eric's life without me being here. Unfortunately, this is, you know, something that I have to plan for. And hopefully it won't ever be that way, but I have St. Louis Life listed in here. I have the ARCS residential program, Rainbow Village. Then there's another place, which I have not gone there, but there's a place in Festus called My Place. And it's just to give resources to to whoever would be taking over the care. I also have the Metro caller ride information, OATS information, and then other various transportation options available in St. Louis, not necessarily where I live, but available in St. Louis. And that completes the binder. There we are. And it's thick and it's a work in progress. And to gather up all this information is going to take time. I would recommend starting by scanning your important documents and go from there. You know, start just in that mindset. You have to be inspired to sit down and do this. So like I'd have my moments of inspiration and I'd say, okay, today I'm going to work on Eric's likes and dislikes. And I just kept it in a Word document and then I would go, you know, save it. And then I could go back and say, oh, I forgot to add this. I forgot to add that. With the health information, I didn't keep, real detailed records since birth. You know, so I basically went back to when we had the major issues. I did list his hospitalizations as a child, but I didn't go into too much detail because it's water under the bridge. But, things that could affect him now were most important to me. So those are the types of things you want to look at. So maybe this month you sit down and you scan your documents. Next month you sit down and you say, oh, I'm going to list all the health problems that the child has had. And, and it just, you kind of list all these things and then you start putting them together and like the PowerPoint will kind of give you the order. And it doesn't mean you have to do it in order. It's just so that that information is there, that in your absence, someone can pick it up and know as much as they can or as much as you want them to know about your loved one.